All right, peace and love, everybody this year. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Today's going to be a special broadcast. I'm sure you will appreciate this. For those who have never tuned in to our program before, you are now tuned in to More in America. Right now, we are live on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the same time. And if you're listening to this later on, you may be listening to the audio-only portion. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of those wonderful platforms, make sure that you also go over to YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're also on Facebook. Make sure you like and follow on all of those wonderful platforms so that you don't miss anything that we do. Right? Because we've always got great content that we are delivering to you. This is the only, I'm not going to say it's the only, there are some other great Moorish platforms out there as well. I do want to give a shout out to those other brothers and sisters that are doing it, but we specifically are presenting information, knowledge, wisdom, understanding from a Moorish American perspective. We specifically focus on the Moorish American paradigm. Nobody out there is doing it. We're like the CNN, Moors in America. Even better than CNN, the true Americans. Not knocking anyone else from America, but we have to keep it real. We reveal light here. That's what we do. We don't cover things up. We don't hide. And so if you want to get the truth, raw, unadulterated truth from the indigenous, Choctawnist, Moorish perspective, you're in the right place. This is where you're going to get it. So I'm not just saying that because this is my platform. I'm saying this because this is our platform. This is what we do here. So this video represents the views of the presenters, in this case me. It's based off of my personal research and life experience. And this is great because we're speaking on the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. So you're not going to hear this from someone who's never been anywhere before, who's never traveled the world. We're going to be sharing life experiences, actually touching down in other places, and also research and understanding. So this is something that you definitely want to tune into. I'm hoping everybody here shows some love by hitting that like and that share button. Okay? Please hit the like and the share button, because when you do that, it helps get the algorithms up and going, and it makes it so that this wonderful, enlightening information can reach more people, so that it's not just showing to you, not just showing to one or two other people, but no, showing to people all over the globe. All right, you don't want to miss this. So hit the like and share button, and we will be getting started very soon. All right, so we'll just give some more people time to get up in here, but don't go anywhere. Make sure you like, make sure you share, and if you haven't subscribed already on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you do so. Also, we have to restart our Instagram page. We had over almost 30,000 followers on Instagram, and Instagram just took it down for no reason, really. So make sure you go over to Instagram too. As you see on the screen, hit the bell. Moors in America on Instagram, Moors in America on Twitter too, and it's Moors in America 7 on YouTube. Islam to the Sheikh, the young phenom, Bay-L, Islam, brother. Peace and love to you. Definitely have to get you back on here for another interview. All right, but just coming back in here, Morris, I want everybody to hit that like and share button, and if you've never been here before, you will enjoy it. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Just a few words from our sponsors, and also sharing some great Moorish American music with you. All right, some real music. So don't go anywhere, Moors. You will enjoy this. Everybody here, click that like and share. And shout out to the brother Dre Lloyd.
It's chapter 7. Mind of an Asiatic, homie. Yo. See, any other time, I wouldn't pay you any mind. Put my best foot forward in every verse and every line. I used to dream, I used to pray about the day that I get signed into the truth. About this business just blew my mind. I swear to God, I used to think all I needed was a skill. High verse, catchy hook, dope look, then get a deal. I used to love the rock a sold out show just for the thrill, until the real was revealed to my spirit like Jabril. I'm iconic.
Yeah, all praise due to Allah, and honors to the last prophet in these days and times. That's Drew Ali, 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 that's Drew Ali. It ain't no question where these lessons are coming from. In North America, I'm still flexing, dancing to the drums. They going dumb like, bruh, we ain't think you come from out of heaven, throw up the 7, sliding through the slums. Go 101 with
Rip. Listen, I handle things differently than most. Bobbing on some high power shit. If I was you, I'd get a dose. Grab a seat, pen and pad, take notes. Brace for the shift, many become disembodied. Adios, this is first-hand manuscript. The flow's powernomics, phonics. So you all get the boom from my sonic. I'm on it. Russian cool is so influential, mental, so we sent you when building up your temple. Simple, peace, God, what you into?
I shine like a Cuban link, that polo Snoop Beach, the 9 in the design of me. I'm wise like I designed a Sphinx, was born a righteous king, to rule from New York to Mozambique.
Highest quality handmade fezzes. Crafted fez with the finest wool, complete with tassel and leather sweatband. Wear the national headdress of Moorish Americans with pride and respect. 3XL size fez is a comfortable fit for brothers with dreadlocks. Shipping worldwide. Go to moorishfez.com to order.
Okay, so I do have a presentation for you, Moors, and looks like it just came up. Here we go. So we're gonna speak on the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Specifically chapter 45. That's in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And for those who have never seen this, been exposed to this before, we'll speak on that briefly and share some insight and wisdom with you as to why this is important, how this pertains to us. When I say us specifically, yeah, the people, the Asiatics, the Moors of North America. Okay, but it's actually a far-reaching topic. It touches a lot of people. So this is something that should be of interest to all types of people from all types of backgrounds. All right, not just to me and the other people who classified as black or African American. So here we go, Moors. We're gonna get started, and like I said, if you've never even seen the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, hopefully this will make sense to you. You'll have a greater understanding. For those who've heard of the Moors, you want to know why they talk and say the things that they say. We're gonna make sense out of this. Okay. Um, I know that signs and symbols speak to the conscious as well as the subconscious mind. That's why I wanted to put together a presentation for us so that we can see images, video, so that we can see things that are real. Because, like I said, many of us have not ever traveled to other countries before, okay, and have not seen Asiatic people in other countries. And when I say other countries, all over the world, but we want to focus on the Americas, right? North, South, Central America, which includes the Caribbean, the West Indies, Islam to everybody. Peace to everyone that's commenting in here. Thank you for commenting. Please, if you put a comment, please click that like button and please click that share button. All right. I see we have some West Indian Asiatic Moorish people up in here too. And that's beautiful because we're all over. And so, like I said, I just want to put the images and the video to it because those things are powerful. They speak to us on a deeper level. And especially for those of us who haven't been able to get out, like actually not just travel to other countries, but also have lived in other countries before. And so I have an understanding that I want to share with you. All right. And to this understanding gives deeper meaning to why we have this chapter 45 in here, why we are all relinked back together, why the prophet felt that it was important to reconnect us to our Asiatic family. Okay. As we go into this, I think the prophet wanted to let it be known here in chapter 45 that the world is much larger than the United States of America, right? United States of America is a pretty big land area, has a huge population, right? But the world is much bigger than the United States. And so it's easy for us to forget that. Whatever country we're living in right now, wherever we're at in the world, we're dealing with our own thing. And it's kind of easy to forget that the world is much larger. And for those of us who've been blessed to be able to travel, you may remember this, you may know this always, but as the brother May L said in the chat, we must remember someone who had a huge influence on us Moorish Americans here in North America, was a West Indian. We're going to speak about that today, right? In other words, he was from Jamaica, West Indies. Okay. So we're going to make sense out of all this. And I just thank everyone for commenting. Make sure, though, that if you hit a comment, if you commented, also that you hit the like and the share button. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Don't want to take up too much more of your time. So chapter 45, we're just going to go ahead and take out a little time to read this. And then we're going to explain a little deeper. So chapter 45, the divine origin of the Asiatic nations. Verse 1 says, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate and to know their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans. And then you see after Moorish Americans, you see that ETC, right? For teaching and instructing all Moorish Americans. And then you have ETC. So it starts with us. We must get ourselves together, learn to love, to hate, and know of our higher self and lower self, right? This is where people went astray. With every prophet that comes, they come with this pure message to return you to to your true nature, right? So that you can connect to the creator, which is within us all. And then people, man, they always come and they distort the message. They get away from it. So the prophet comes to do this same good work. Okay. And it doesn't even mean that we're all going to get it this time around, but he comes to do the noble, the true work. And so we have this, we can get it together, then to go out, teach and instruct, right? All people. And why does the prophet say this? Well, very next verse says, the key of civilization was in the past and is, that means the present, in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. So the key to civilization was in our hands in the past, and it still is. And for those who would say, what do you mean it is? You guys aren't in power, right? Well, does anybody think that everything going on around in the world today is great, is wonderful? You know, right? They're polluting. All types of things are going on, polluting the world, taking advantage of people, right? You have people that are, suffering, struggling. I mean, there's so much going on. So the key to civilization was in our hands and in the past, and it's still in our hands right now. And since we're not enacting and fulfilling our true potential, this is why we are being ran over, right? This is why we're being ran over. So, or not just ran over, but this is why things aren't up to their highest potential, right? Right. We're still using fossil fuels and all of these things. And, there's just so much going on. All right. And it's because we are supposed to be running civilization. We can't put it on anyone else to fix things, right? We can't put it on anyone else to come and to fix this situation that we're in. So going on down to verse 3, it says, the Egyptians who were the Hamathites and of a direct descendant of Misraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. So all of these are linked in. You have the Egyptians who were the Hamathites. Then you have a direct descendant of Misraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. All of these are linked in. They're all Asiatic. Then going down to the Hindus of India, the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Hittites, and Moabites from the land of Canaan. They're all Asiatics. Now we're going off to, I guess you could say, the Western Hemisphere. The Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America. Okay? Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America. And then we have a list of some of them. The Moorish Americans, that's those up here in North America. And Mexicans of North America. Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America. Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. So you have a listing of some, but it says etc. because there's several more that's not listed. It doesn't say Haitians, Jamaicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, right? The people from the Virgin Islands, the Bahamas, Costa Rica, all of these places too, where these people are Asiatic. So it just says ETC because you could just go on listing all the nations of North, South, and Central America. There's no need to do that, right? So all of these nations in North, South, and Central America, these are Asiatic people. They're Muslims. They're supposed to be Muslim by descent. They're supposed to be Muslims. Muslims mean you submit to the will of Allah. So this is what we're all supposed to be doing. This would guarantee our success. Islam, we're all supposed to be submitting to the will of Allah, and as the Sheikh Shah El said, then carrying that message to the four corners of the world. This is why it said that the keys to civilization was and still is in our hands. Doesn't matter how things look. It may look like we've fallen off and we're not in power. And so that's why the world is in the condition that it's in, because we're not enacting being in our true nature. Okay. And so also, sorry about that, verse 7, the Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad I, the founding of the uniting of Islam, right? The Prophet Muhammad didn't create the religion of Islam. He united, he brought it together. He received divine insight, wisdom from Allah, right? Because he was united with his higher self, and he gave this message to man. But he also said that those who came before him, like Jesus, even Abraham, that they were all Muslims, right? They were all Muslims because everyone who submits to the will of Allah is a Muslim, regardless of what they call it. They could be out in Hawaii, right? They have Ho'oponopono, but they're submitting to the will of the Creator. That means that they are Muslims, okay? So it wouldn't matter what they call it or what name they call the Creator, not limited to that. So we're returning to the source, right? So, we're not trying to say that, people who live in other countries aren't Muslims, aren't Asiatics, right? This is pretty much the whole world, right? Almost everyone, all the people they call so-called colored people, right here in North America, they'll say the colored nations, the colored people, people of color. Now that's what they say, right? Rather than saying colored people, here they'll say people of color. So all the people that they would classify as people of color are Asiatics for the most part. Okay. We could get into what the term Asiatics really means, but I don't think this would be a good time to do that, as that would take a lot of time. And I really want to go through this so that we all have a good understanding of the this whole divine origin of the Asiatic nations. All right. And let's go ahead and get started and go into this. For those who don't know who is up on the screen, that seated is the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and then next to him is his wife, Pearl Drew Ali, Islam. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about this. And like I said, hopefully everyone will have great understanding on this topic. But before we get started, I would ask that everyone watching this hit that like and share button. Let's get some more likes and shares up in here. Let's get these algorithms going up, because I'm telling you, this information, with the visuals and everything that's in here, is powerful. Okay, people need to see it. And I think, like, with this channel, it's grown, but it's organic. Like, we're not paying for ads. We're not like attacking people and doing things to try to create controversy and things that we think would make the channel do better, right? We stick with the intellectual information and not like going at people and just doing things that you'll see people doing on YouTube. Like, we don't do that, right? We're not gonna have people up here twerking and doing all this stuff just to get people to watch. So this grows by people like you sharing the videos, liking it, because that lets the program know that people like this content. Okay, so if you like anything about this content, make sure you also go and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to this on another platform, also go on YouTube, and then also go on Instagram. I'm gonna ask everyone who watched this video to go on Instagram and follow Moors in America. Just type Moors in America on Instagram and follow it. Let's get those numbers back up on Instagram as well. All right. So definitely too, it's a bloodline that connects us. Why? Because when I don't want to talk about this too much today. I mean, maybe we should, since this is in alignment, but with the topic. But when we look in the Quran questionnaire of the Moorish Science Temple of America, it shows that we all have a similar line of descent. We're connected. Okay. We have bonds that connect us, even as we separate into the world, that we must remember. We must remember. All right. These bonds that connect us to each other. It's easy to forget because it's been many years and we speak different languages and we live all over the place. But no, we have these ties that bond us to each other. So we must remember that. So let's go ahead and go into this, right? This is a deep topic. It affects us all. So remember, the key of civilization was, that's talking about the past, but it also is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. So that means if we don't like what's going on in the world, we don't like the fact there's a giant island of plastic floating around in the Pacific Ocean, and that the way things are going, they're just going to keep churning that stuff out, making more garbage, killing more people, more pharmaceuticals, more stuff that's not good for anyone, killing more, like they mass produce chickens and all of these things just for food, just so they can get tortured and just the things that's happening to people, right? It's terrible. But none of that stuff is going to stop until the people, the Asiatic nations, those who had the keys of civilization and still hold the keys of civilization, until we stand up and be who we truly are. And who we truly are by nature is Muslims. So until we do that, we're going to continue to physically be in these conditions where we suffer. Where even if you trying to live off the grid and be as clean and pristine as you could possibly be, you still have these train derailments. If you're in here in North America, where they're polluting, they leaking all these chemicals, and I'm not trying to be negative, but they leaking all this stuff into the air and the water. You still have the chemtrails they're spraying in the air. So no matter what you do, we're all in this corrupt system, and it's not going to end until we stand up. Okay. So just going back to this, the key of civilization was and is in the hands. Everywhere you go in the world, you will see Asiatic people. You can see on here the original Australians, even the original Asians, the original so-called Latinos, the original so-called Filipinos, the original Americans, the original people of India. Doesn't matter where you go across all over the continent of Africa, right? That's where we know you'll see people, Asiatics, dark-skinned people, and try to confine us to that area, but actually we're worldwide. Okay. And so I believe like what the prophet's doing, he wants us to have a greater understanding of who we are. And also in this country, they tend to call people like us minorities. But when you travel throughout the world, you realize that that is ridiculous to even consider this thinking that you could possibly be a minority. We're all over, right? Just who are the Asiatics though? You have here on the screen, you have once again Australia, you have Chad, Thailand, Argentina, right? You have islands, various islands, and then Yemen. The people in Yemen are in a similar situation to those so-called black people, those people misnomered black and African American. Why? Because in Yemen, the people who look like us would be considered not untouchables. That's what they call the people in India, but it's another term like untouchables. I don't know why I can't remember right now. But they have that tag on them. Why? Because they don't know their history. They're disconnected to their history either through war, maybe even some of them suffering through slavery, different things that disconnected them from their history. And so now they get taken advantage of by the other people who live in that region. Just mentioning that because, we're in a unique situation and they're in a similar situation to us. Okay. So just once again, who are the Asiatic nations? Just some examples. You're looking at Colombia, the Philippines again. Okay. And the people in the Philippines, they're starting to have an awakening in consciousness. They had a sitting president. His name was Duarte, who several years ago, he stated to his nation that he identifies as Moro. Okay. And that his people should start identifying, not just calling, but actually identifying as Moro. That there's no reason for them to call themselves the Philippines. They don't need to keep honoring King Philip of Spain. We are Moros. So you had a head of state, a sitting president who made this statement to his nation and to the world. All right, this is powerful. There's a consciousness rising up in the entire world, right? So you had to, and I know I'm saying Philippines, right? I want to respect that, what their president was saying, right? But he's letting them know that they're of Moorish descent. We are Moros. And we need to throw that Filipino tag, all of that stuff off, right? So there's a consciousness rising across the world. He said he's a Moro. That means Moorish. So going to Egypt, right? You see our people all over the place, right? Of course, here in the USA, most of the people watching this are probably from the USA. You already know this. Mali, right? You could be all throughout Africa, the Andaman Islands. There's several islands in the Pacific where you will see nothing but dark-skinned people, curly hair, afros, right? Many that, if you just pluck them off of their island and put them somewhere here in the United States, they would look like people would think they're just, one of us. They're American, right? So here we go. We got to keep this moving, though. It's all over the world. Madagascar, the Sahara Desert, Mauritania, right? Chile, Guadalupe, India, West Papua New Guinea. So you're talking about in the Pacific Islands. All right. All over. Nigeria, Iran, right? When you think of Iran, Pakistanians. You're not really thinking of people that look like you, but they're there and they've been there. Sudan, right? New Caledonia. So all over Bolivia, right? All over. We're everywhere, right? Some more examples up here: Morocco, Brazil, um, even with wearing the turbans and everything in Brazil. Witness this. I know this is real. Iraq, Solomon Islands, East Timor, Kenya. So people can tell you anything if you've never been anywhere, right? They'll tell you anything. Like in many countries, I know this for a fact, throughout Central and South America, they don't even show the dark skinned Asiatic people on TV. And when they do, their maids, their servants. Sometimes they even have the other lighter skinned so-called Latinos. None of you should refer to yourself as Latino, because that means that you are under the jurisdiction of the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church, right? But they'll have some of the lighter skinned ones doing blackface, right? And then when they show the darker skinned so-called Latinos, they're in servile positions, right? And they don't even show them really that much on TV. They act like they don't exist, even though in places like Brazil, the majority of the population is of African descent. Okay, this is straight up. I can speak on Brazil from living there for 5 years. I know this. And I saw on TV how everybody was, even though we don't call people white, I'm talking about what they refer to themselves as. Almost everyone they show on TV was white. It was ridiculous. Didn't represent the population at all. So going to Ethiopia, Haiti's like the percentage of the population is like 95, 97% of what they would call black people, right? We know that we are more correctly identified as Moors. Okay. Namibia, Pakistan. Once again, you don't see that in Pakistan. Mexico, they definitely don't show you Mexicans of obvious African descent, but they're there. And this is not discounting the lighter skinned people from those areas at all, because a lot of Mexicans have Afro descent. All right. Period. Regardless of how they look. But you have some who are like, obviously, right? You could just pluck them out of Mexico and put them once again in the United States, in Detroit, in Atlanta, and they'll just look like regular so-called black people. Fiji as well, same thing, except for the majority of the population there in Fiji looks like the so-called African American. Okay. So just wanted to put some images to that again. And even in Europe, you have Asiatics in Europe who've been there for the longest. Turkey, Greece, right? Many of these places that are also close, very close to like North Africa, but in Asia. But hey, they're there. They've been there for the longest. Of course, Puerto Rico, Malaysia, and several other places, right? Just all across the world. So we are a global people. Going back to chapter 45, the Egyptians, who were the Hammatites and are of direct descent of Misraim, that were Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese. And so I'm not showing this to discount these people who live in those regions, who are lighter skinned. I'm not trying to say that they're not Asiatic either. I'm just showing these images because they don't show these images themselves. When you go to Saudi Arabia, they don't show the dark skinned Saudi Arabians on TV that much, just like they do in Mexico, in Bolivia, in all these other places. I saw a skin bleaching ad from India, right? They're showing a lady, she's a little dark skinned, I guess, maybe a little darker than me. And then she goes and she bleaches her skin and she's coming in, she's getting this, she's getting like raises, promotions at her job, and everybody's loving her, right? So that's the type of crap that you see all over the world. They're promoting this stuff and they act like the darkies don't exist, right? So I'm not saying this happens everywhere, but in a lot of these places. So you wouldn't even know, like, the brothers on the screen are from Saudi Arabia, and they're not like, Sudanese slaves or something, right? I'm talking about like real Saudi Arabians, true Arabians that have been there for the longest. Okay. They're just as Arabian as anybody else, and they're dark skinned. Okay. I'm just showing this, right? Because this is what the prophet is reconnecting us to. It's not to diss or to to make anyone else feel like they're less than because they don't look like these brothers. Just showing something that's not shown to the world, right? The highest imam in Saudi Arabia is a brother, the brother that's on the screen, Sheikh Abdul Kalbani. This is the one who does the call to prayer. Okay. And he's from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Okay. All right. And this is real. This is not something I'm making up. These brothers are Bedouins. They are Arabians. And you will see this. Like if you go to Dubai, if you go to Saudi Arabia, you will see many people who look like you, people darker skinned than you. I'm not saying they're the only ones there or they're the only ones that are Asiatics, just saying that nobody showed. Why are you hiding it? Right? As the brother said, it's propaganda. Why are you acting like they don't exist? Why is it that anytime these people are shown, the other ones will tell you, oh, they're the descendants of slaves automatically, right? Because Negro is a tag that was created by the Europeans that denoted descendant of an enslaved African. So whenever anyone puts that Negro black tag on you, it's not just the United States of America thing. That's all throughout North America, Central America, and South America. That's another reason why we're going to focus on the Americas today, because we are all tied together by that. I lived in Brazil for 5 years with my family, and I saw how Brazil's infrastructure was set up and its social political structure was set up. I lived in a state where 90% of the people were Afro-Brazilians, and most of them were dark skinned, and where the governor looked like some quote unquote white dude from America. He even had the last name Wagner. He didn't even have a Portuguese name. And everyone, all of the congressmen, all of the lawmakers, all of the rich people, everyone who's living in the nice condos and the mansions, they were all light skinned. And you look at the TV, nobody represented the real Brazilians. Not saying that they weren't real Brazilians as well, but hey, why are you hiding the majority of your population? Right? And why is the majority of the population regulated to living in subhuman conditions, living in abject poverty, worse than any poverty that we have here in the United States of America? Right? And I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter what hood you're from, they got it worse, bro. Trust me, you ain't never seen nothing like that. And I'm only saying it's because the people are hidden away, they're marginalized, right? So we need to notice. Okay. So going back to the same verse, speaking about the seed of Hagar, which the Arabians fall into, but also the Japanese and Chinese. We have an image here on the screen from 1904 showing the main street in Korea. And you have dark-skinned Koreans, even Koreans who would nowadays be classified as black. Okay. And even though in these countries they've been lightening up their population, Korea is another one of these places where they have these skin lightening products, where they have commercials that literally come on TV encouraging the Koreans to lighten their skin, which is like ridiculous. But just showing this image because the Japanese and Koreans are very closely related, right? I know this for a fact, right? Very closely related genetically. Japanese and Chinese. Personally, I'll just speak on myself. Personally, my grandmother was Japanese from Osaka, Japan. Okay. And I know just from doing the DNA thing, it shows that, hey, you might have a grandmother from Korea. So the Japanese and Chinese genetically genetically related, right? So when it's saying the seed of Hagar, right, you're talking about their Asiatics as well. And they've, even though been lightening up their populations, even committing genocide against their darker skinned population. This picture is from 1869, showing Chinese women. All of the women are Chinese. Nowadays, things have been dumbed down so much that people automatically associate so-called black people with either you from Africa or you were somehow enslaved, right? You might have been free, but you moved here from Africa, or you were enslaved. Not taking into account that the indigenous people of that area looked like that, right? They didn't come there through the slave trade or something else. No, you may have had trade taking place back and forth, but you also had the indigenous aspect. So this is saying 1869, and you have the one lady who you have a real good picture of in the middle, who's obviously dark skinned Asiatic lady, but also sitting around the table, right? You have other dark skinned ladies, so they're all Chinese, okay? And I'm only showing this because that's another place too that's been lightening up their population and also committing genocide against the darker skinned Chinese. And guess what? There's a bunch of millions of Chinese who are Muslims. All right, many of them are dark skinned. They're the minority in their country because there's over a billion of them. Okay, but they're marginalized, and then you also have a lot of Chinese that are really dark skinned, but they don't show them on TV, even in their own country. They act like they don't exist. All right, and then unfortunately, if they're living in poverty or close to the poverty level, they're not the Chinese that's going to be able to come over here to this country because you have to have money to get to America. America, for those that don't know, there's a program they have that's like a lottery. It's a lottery to get a green card, right? A lottery to get the ticket, the golden ticket to come over here because there's so much opportunity over here. People are still trying to come to this country every day, right? So yeah, if you are dark skinned, impoverished from any nation, not just China, you're probably not going to be one of the ones that get over here, get to win the golden. They call it a lottery, literally, to try to get the citizenship or the green card. It's another dark skinned lady of Chinese descent. Remember, the seed of Hagar, Japanese and Chinese, right? They are Asiatics as well, and they're supposed to be Muslims. Um, Going back here, we have another picture of a group of Chinese people, all dark skinned, right? Keep in mind they had genocide. They tried to eliminate that population, but they're still there. We have an example, a visual of some Moros in the Philippines, right? Identified as Moros. Even one of them looks like he has a shimtar blade right there. They have turbans on their head, more than likely actively practicing Islam as well, right? And so they're having a rising consciousness where they are returning to Islam, okay? So this is actually really happening in real life. But so I just wanted to show you that, like, worldwide, from a worldwide perspective, but then going back to the Americas, because we want to remember the Asiatic nations of North, South, and Central America, the Moorish Americans and Mexicans of North America, Brazilians, Argentinians, and Chileans in South America, Colombians, Nicaraguans, and the natives of San Salvador in Central America, etc. All of these are Muslims. All of them. So we have pictures of Afro-Colombian children, Afro-Dominican children. Dominican Republic and Haiti is one island. For a long time, it was called Hispaniola, but it's one island. And even though you may have had more mixture of different ethnic backgrounds happening in the Dominican Republic than in Haiti, all right, still for the most part the same people, right? So you have a lot of people of African descent. All right. Afro-Brazilian children. Brazil has more people of African descent than we have here in North America. Then you have the so-called Afro-American children. Okay. Showing the imagery again, we have Cuba. Like, okay, and this is not discounting, people of lighter complexions from any of these areas, right? Because if you like, we don't have Jamaica up here, but most everybody think of Jamaica, you think of so-called black people, right? And that's because the population is more than 90% of the people, the population are obviously of African descent, right? But when you go to Jamaica, for example, you look at somebody like the reggae singer Sean Paul, right? Dancehall king, right? Sean Paul has two Asiatic parents, right? Some people don't even know he's Asiatic. They think he's a so-called white dude, right? But I'm just saying that to say that he could say he's Puerto Rican or Cuban, and people all accept that, but they don't realize that you have people that look like him in Cuba, in Jamaica, in all of these places that are Asiatic. They have two Asiatic parents. He's just light skinned. And so I'm just saying this to say I'm not trying to discount anyone. I know all Mexicans don't look like the little sister who's up here on the screen, right? This is why the Prophet Islam, brother Mael, this is why the Prophet referred to us as having olive complexions. Because if you look at all the different types of olives and just line them up, you have all these different shades and complexions of the human family, right? Of the Asiatics, right? So we're not just trying to, the main reason I'm showing the imagery of the people, obviously of African descent, is because images speak loud and clear, right? So there are people in Cuba who may look just like you. They look like a lot of people in your family. Also in Bolivia, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Colombia, right? All over the place. We're in the Americas now, and we're looking at why the prophet really specified this. When he talked about North, South, and Central America, he's naming all of these places. He's really naming every nation in North, South, and Central America because he put ETC, right? The Atlantis Islands, which would be the Caribbean, all of that, right? And then once again, too, for anyone, because I know a lot of people now, that you're also have the indigenous aspect of people who look like us who were here prior to colonization. You have people who are jumping off a cliff trying to separate themselves from Africa, right? And that's not the way to go. The prophet reconnected us to Africa for a reason. He said that our ancestors received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to come over here and inhabit this portion of the land, right? We don't want to separate ourselves from that. When you separate yourselves from that, you're cutting yourself off from the creators of civilization. All right. You're cutting yourself off from Atlantis and the people who are responsible for Egypt and all high civilization all over the world. Even whatever country you live in right now, all of that is based off of Egypt, which is based off of something even more ancient than Egypt. All right. So when you want to cut yourself off from Africa, you're cutting yourself off from all of that, because from our perspective, this is Northwest and Southwest Africa. It just broke off from the continent when the great earthquake happened, which caused the Atlantic Ocean. That's in our Quran. That's a part of our religion. That's why all of you should get into the temple if you're not in there yet. I understand there's a lot of corruption in the temple too, but the main reason it's in there is because it's a lot of Moors is weak and they just let that stuff go. You need to know who you are. You need to come in and you need to clean it up. But yeah, let's keep going. So for everyone, well, oh no, Africa, you want to cut off Africa? You don't know what you're doing. Okay, you falling off a cliff. We don't do that here, right? So the prophet, he got all of our people together. He declared our independence, right? He formed the nation. They moved as a nation. We had a treasurer. We were collecting a tax, right? We had a per capita tax. We're generating our own industry, right? To the point where we would be able to partake in trade with our fellow Asiatics without going through anyone else, right? Forming our own nation. This is what it's really about. So it's really powerful what he did. And in this image here, I can't say for certain what everyone's background is, but considering this is 1928 and that many of the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America were previously aligned with Marcus Garvey, which we'll get into that, with Marcus Garvey's movement, the UNIA, you more than likely had some West Indians up in here. But I'll explain why, right? So first, we'll focus on North America, right? Not going to spend too much time on this, but the so-called black person, so-called African American, the American Negro, as it says on this meme, is the American Indian. All of those are misnomers, right? But I'm just showing this because it doesn't matter if you had ancestry that through people who were captured and sold into slavery in West Africa. Even though most of those people wound up in Brazil, you did have trading that occurred throughout the Americas, right? So even if your ancestry is only through the transatlantic slave trade, right? Okay, if that's your only way of tracing yourself back, you're still dealing with Moors, all right? And then the people who were indigenous to the area, to the Americas, speaking about North America specifically, were considered Moors. They were Moorish people. You have an image here. This is from an old newspaper article where you see the Indian chief is obviously what they would have called back then a Negro. All right. Um, this this page that's up here right now is just saying a school for Indian youth was opened in Lebanon in Connecticut in 1748 under the Reverend Eliezer Wheelock, and there the well-known Indian preacher Mr. Occam and the celebrated Mohawk chief Brant were educated. It was afterward removed to Hanover in New Hampshire, where it is still to be found and is nominally connected. I understand with Dartmouth College. Its proper title is Moore's Charity School, right? So you're talking about a school where they were re-educating the indigenous people, right? And in many cases, like it was like a place where they lived, like a boarding school. So they're coming into these schools and they called them Moore's schools. This wasn't the only example. This one was called Moore's Charity School. All right. And they're saying that later on became Dartmouth College. All right. But they'll tell you that this was named after a European man named Moore, right? Moor. Where's the E on the end? Right? It's not Moore. Why is it just Moore's Charity School? Also, why were the indigenous people in this region, right, New England, in many cases referred to as Moors, to the point where entire tribes, like the Delaware, the Nanticoke, were referred to as Moors. And then their children are being educated in the Moor schools. Okay? So these weren't coincidences, right? You also have uh the notebook, or excuse me, the handbook of North American Indians, right, from the Federal Depository of New York State. That also lets it be known, right? And this is from the Smithsonian Institute Library of Congress catalog. It says that among the reputed ancestors of the Aboriginal American Indian population, natives are Moors and Turks, right? They know that they have Moorish ancestry. Okay. We also have a definition, a dictionary definition for Moor, which gives you two different, the main understandings of Moor. One is a member of the dark skinned people of mixed Arab and Berber ancestry inhabiting ancient Mauritania in North Africa and conquering Spain in the 8th century, right? A Moroccan, Berber, Muslim. Okay, but then you also have the Blackamoor, right? A group of people of mixed Indian, white, and Negro ancestry in central Delaware. Compare Nanticoke, right? So you have these entire tribes of so-called Indians on the East Coast who were considered Moors or Blackamoors. And there's so many newspaper articles from the 17 and 1800s calling the so-called Indians in North America Moors, right? You have the 1828 Webster's Dictionary definition of American and Native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races, right? The dark brown skinned or skin tone races found here by the Europeans, but now applies to the descendants of Europeans born in America, right? And we know that the people, many of the people who received their federal tribal status, they don't look like that, right? They definitely don't have that copper complexion. So this is specifically talking about the people who are still here, right? There's millions of us here. They said that they killed us off, but we're not. We just don't know who we are, right? So, there's plenty of examples. We have some magazine articles up here. These magazines were called Copper Romance, and these were aimed at our people. And you see the women who are on the cover, right? Copper tone ladies who would be classified as African American or black nowadays, right? This is who was aimed at. So we know who the copper races are, even though we're not going to call ourselves copper races or naming ourselves after some color. Just specifically talking about us. This is the actually the Algonquin Indian Council. Okay. And you could just look at this image and see the not just the complexion, but the facial features of that Indian Council. Some of you may know that people members of the Wu-Tang Clan, some of them that are from Long Island that are related, right? They know that they're Shinnecock Indian. Matter of fact, the brother who rest in peace to ODB, Old Dirty Bastard, his grandfather was Paul Cuffey. Paul Cuffey was considered the last Shinnecock pureblood Indian chief. Okay. And I'm just saying this because like you had people who still had this understanding, which has been passed down orally. Many of us have this, right? Many of us, our grandparents, my grandfather, he told me his father's Blackfoot. At the time when he would say that, he said it several times. At the time, I didn't really understand. I'm thinking maybe he was mixed or something, right? But it went a lot deeper than that, right? So we all have these oral traditions, and it's not an accident. This is something that outsiders don't know. So people who are not um, misnomered as Black or African American, you don't know that we all have these oral traditions that our grandparents told us of their lineage. Like I don't know about this slave trade, right, coming from Africa, but I do know that granddad spoke the Algonquin language. Your granddad was a chief, right? So all that stuff gets discounted. But we have that tradition, and we're the only ones that actually have that tradition. Just another picture. Algonquin so-called Indians. You can see obviously from their facial features. Now, if you don't think for yourself, you'll go along with the common thought that this um colonized mindset that they must have been mixed with some slaves, right? Even though in many cases, these were the only people holding to the traditions, the only people who could speak the language, all right, of the so called Indians. Believe that or not. Once again, some more Algonquins. And it's obviously like who they are. These people were reclassified as Negro, right? Their tribes were considered extinct. Here's a picture of a Seminole chief. Once again, a dark skinned brother. He's even got a form of a fez on. The Seminoles, you going down to southeast North America. You're talking about Florida and Alabama. Okay. Modern day Seminoles, right? I'm not discounting the, people who actually are of these bloodlines who are of lighter complexion either. I'm not trying to do that, right? But speaking to my people, because we don't see these images anywhere else, right? So we're uncovering here. In this image, okay, you have the European explorers, and you have some Indian men over there, and you have a so-called Negro, misnomered Negro standing there. Guess who the Indian interpreter is in the photo? Guess. It's the so-called Negro. So how do you explain that? Once again, if you don't think for yourself, you just take whatever, whatever colonized garbage jumble is just thrown out to you to say, well, he was enslaved and he grew up in a tribe and on the reservation. No, okay? It doesn't make any sense. So in this instance, the so-called Negro was the Indian interpreter. It allowed them to go along and communicate with the other tribes. Why is he able to do this? Okay? Because he descends from the indigenous people. All right, just some more imagery for you, right? These are real so-called Indians. We know that Indian is a misnomer. For anyone that's caught up in hair texture, here's a picture from New Netherlands, right? This is from the New York Public Library. Indigenous people, you got a brother with a short cropped afro, right? Obviously wearing the Indian regalia, right? Bow and arrow and everything. This is from 1671. There's so much more. And shout out to the brother PNF. Go and check out his YouTube channel. This is the first person I've ever seen show this image. This is a celebration of the passing of, I believe, the 15th Amendment. It's either the 13th or the 15th Amendment. All right. All right, that Abraham Lincoln was pushing through. Now, if you look in this image, I can't zoom in on it, but if you look in there, okay, you'll see all of these. I'm going to say Asiatics. Speaking about our people, the so-called Black people. All right, I'm not going to say that that word anymore. So you see all these Asiatics in the picture. You even see the brothers down here wearing their fezzes lined up. Okay. So a lot was supposed to happen here. We were supposed to be free, given our land, and set to go out and take control of our own destiny. That did not occur, right? But this imagery from the 1800s. You got the brothers wearing the fezzes. This is our people celebrating. Okay, you don't see that anywhere else, and this is an old image. So a lot of people have no idea. I mean, Abraham Lincoln, before he became president, when he was still a lawyer, he defended a William Dungy. I believe William Dungy was in Illinois, and he had came into inheritance of some property, and one of his um relatives, like a distant relative who was able to pass for white, who was of European descent, accused William Dungy of being a Negro because Negroes couldn't own property. Abraham Lincoln defended William Dungy in court, and he won the case. His argument was that while it is not a crime to be a Negro, my client is a Moor. He's a Moor. He argued that William Dungy was a Moor, and he won the case. All right. The person who was accusing him of being a Negro, it was a serious charge because a Negro means that you are a descendant of a slave. It was something that the Europeans created specifically to further their subjugation of the Saracens, of the Moors. Everywhere they encountered Moors, they deemed them Negroes, which meant you are a savage. You started slavery. We civilized you. All right, even though it was the other way around, right? The Moors civilized the Europeans, helped bring them into the family of the nations. Okay. Just some more imagery. Once again from North America, this is a Shinnecock lady. She's at an Indian powwow, 1964. Obviously a sister, right? Looks like many of us. This looks like our grandmother or great great grandmother, right? This is an older image of Mississippians, the indigenous people of the Mississippi area, the mound builders, and you can see their hair texture, their complexion, right? Obvious. This is a modern day Mississippian, a beauty pageant winner. All right, she's a sister, obviously, right? Some Mississippian artifacts that look a lot like Mayan artifacts, right? A lot like the artifacts from the Olmec people. All right, you can see the facial features and stuff in there. So this stuff is hidden, but it's we know who we are now. We're not going along with it. Okay. This is another woman who her indigenous name was anglicized as Catherine, I believe, Catherine. But just this is a popular image too. I think it was Catherine Holmes. You can find this online. Another sister, Moabitess, right? So just wanted to show that this family, this is the Montauk Indian tribe. This is like the royal family of the Montauk Indian tribe. Their last name was Wyandotte Pharaoh. Okay, you may even see that term Wyandotte. Like we see that where we're at is a bunch of buildings and counties named Wyandotte. So Wyandotte Pharaoh was the last pure blood chief of the Montauk Indian tribe. Okay, and they owned much of New York, especially the area which later became known as the Hamptons. You go to the Hamptons now, police will probably mess with you, right? But it used to be ran and owned by us. They had a treaty with the United States government where the Europeans did what they always do, where they're supposed to stay over here and leave this land to you, and your people, your tribe owns it in perpetuity, meaning you have ownership of it forever, right? This is your land. We recognize it. And some of the tribe members were selling their land to the Europeans. And when the chief found out about this, he argued up to the Supreme Court of New York that they didn't even have the right to sell the land. They had to come to the tribe. They never met with me. They never met with our council. So he argued that that was null and void. And the Europeans, all the whole towns, everyone came together against the Montauk tribe and accused Wyandotte Pharaoh of being a Negro. Right? They said, I always thought he was a Negro. Even though it was known, everybody called him Big King or Big Chief. Everybody knew he was the chief of the Montauk tribe. They came and they accused him of being a Negro. And the ruling, which everyone who understands history now knows that this was wrong, right? Right. But at the time, they declared the Montauk Indian tribe extinct. That's how they got the land. That's how all the Europeans can celebrate and vacation in the Hamptons now, because they declared the Montauk Indian tribe extinct. Even though these people, like the ones you see on the screen, this is Wyandotte Pharaoh's family, they were the only ones who spoke the language. This is always the case. They were the only ones who spoke the language. They were the only ones who actually kept up some of the traditions, even though they were becoming more anglicized too, taking on the culture of the Europeans. They still were the only ones that spoke the language and the food and all of that stuff. But they declared the tribe extinct right there so they could get the land. And this is still going on to this day. This is Pocahontas Pharaoh. This is Wyandotte Pharaoh's daughter, right? You see Pocahontas. Okay. So just putting this out there, we have this indigenous aspect. This is also another descendant of the Pharaoh family, right? So just some more imagery. This is Otis Nixon. Used to play baseball for the Braves and the Indians. He just happens to look like both mascots, right? We've been trained to not even think nothing of this. So just showing this because and you have some more imagery. This is from the Smithsonian National Anthropological Archives. This is a Native American family. Okay. Houssapatuk, Native Americans, right? But they'll tell you these are enslaved Africans. Right. So we know who we are now. Nobody can do this to us. Um just some more background on this. William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, right? He described the Indians of New England as Moors, and they were referred to as Negroes, Moors, and Indians interchangeably, right? The settlers called them Moors. They were said to be as black as gypsies. William Penn, he said this in 1681. Um, but William Penn, he met with the indigenous leaders there in Pennsylvania in their capital, which was called Sheckamexim. It's now called Philadelphia. Sheckamexim signifies the place of the eels. So he met with the chiefs, right, at the place of the eels, and they signed a treaty where William Penn was adopted into the tribe and given a name, Mequon, which meant in their language meant Penn. So this is how the takeover happened, right? This is how it happened. The people of that area were Moors. The prophet returned us to this. I know that understanding may be too much for some people, but we're trying to, to bring it to understanding so that people know who we really are, why we're saying this, why we're not really concerned so much if other people agree or not. We don't need you to agree because we have our own prophet, right? We have divine understanding, which gives us understanding on things that have been covered up throughout history. People don't know that entire tribes were declared extinct, even though those people were in the courtroom, were the only ones speaking their language, the only ones keeping up the tribal traditions, were recognized by everyone, even the ones who lied and called them Negroes. Those same people called them Big Chief and knew that they were the Indians, right? So the prophet's reconnecting us to who we are. And these stories, I'm focused on North America, but this happened all throughout the Americas. So these countries you see on here is speaking about the African diaspora in the Americas. It's got the United States at the top with the highest percentage of people of African descent, and then Brazil under it. But in actuality, that's reverse, right? Brazil has way more people of African descent than we have here in North America. I don't even know why I know why. They don't show them on TV. It is crazy. Okay. They have a lot. Like it's ridiculous. Right. So You see all of these places on here. These are all places that the prophet was talking about. Okay. Ecuador, Mexico, Canada, Venezuela, Jamaica, all of these places, Colombia, Haiti, right? It goes on and on and on. Okay. And all of these people aren't descendants of enslaved Africans. So even here in North America, where the slave trade did take place, even if your ancestors were enslaved at some point in time, that doesn't mean that they were brought over on slave trips. We had an internal slave trade where people were sent to other portions of the land, right? And then when you arrived in a new portion, they said that you were an enslaved African from somewhere. West Guinea or something, like, they just said all types of things. But you see the percentage of populations of people who are obviously of African descent, and it's got Haiti up here, like 95, St. Kitts, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Barbados, Turks and Caicos, Antigua and Buda, Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, all of these places hovering around 90% or more, right? Brazil, 50. Oh, it says only 7%. That's way lower than it is. They lying like a mug. But Suriname, Guyana, all of these places, right? Puerto Rico, Belize, Trinidad and Tobago, right? So just all of these places have a huge percentage of people, or even if they have a small percentage, like in Mexico, where it's saying only 1% of the population. Mexico has so many people that 1% is what? 1,386,000, right? So you're talking about a lot of people. And then there's people who would be classified as mestizo, who are of African descent, but maybe they're not claiming it because they're ashamed, right? They think they're getting ahead. But the prophet is reconnecting all that, right? So Belize, I mean, like you may not even think anything of Belize is right beneath Mexico, but you have a lot of people there who look just like the so-called African Americans. Same thing in Puerto Rico, right? Jamaica, Guadalupe, Haiti, all of these places, right? So if we're not thinking international, just putting some images with it, maybe that Rihanna's from Barbados. Wait, is she from Barbados or she from Barbados, right? So there's people, obviously our people that live there, and a high percentage of that population is people of so-called African descent, right? Belize, right? Shine, the rapper, former Bad Boy rapper. His father was the prime minister of Belize. Okay, and you have a large percentage of our people there, right? That speak English too, so you don't even have that language barrier, right? And a lot of the Olmec civilization extended throughout portions of Mexico and even into Belize, right? You have portions of the empire that were there, and you still have those remnants, those temples and pyramids, right? Mayan civilization as well. Um, and then the people of Belize, once again, you could pluck them out of Belize, put them anywhere here, and people would just think that they are so-called African Americans. This is not um, discounting the mestizos there, not saying that. We're just focusing on this because, like, you need to know this, Morse, right? All of these people are Muslims, even the mestizos, right? And many of them know that and are proud. Everybody who's lighter skinned doesn't, hate themselves or hate the African lineage, right? But just bringing this up, Curaçao, right? There was a baseball player back in the day, Andrew Jones for the Braves, right? He just looked like a regular brother. So you have a large percentage of people there look like the so-called African Americans. Why? Well, just to hit on this again, we all have common bonds. We all have a similar line of descent. We all have all of these places that I'm naming had the slave trade. Okay. And all of these places have people who have been branded as Negroes. So we have a similar situation, right? You see here, brother, a professional major league baseball player from Cuba, several of the brothers who make it to the major leagues are obviously of African descent. I mean, there's, you know, it's just undeniable, right? So if you follow baseball, you already know this. Same thing with Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. Like what? This is also the island of Dominica, not the same as Dominican Republic, but once again, Asiatic people. A lot of Asiatic people, obviously of dark skin complexion. Now, going to Grenada, right? Once again, Muslims, Asiatics. A lot of people don't know this, but Malcolm X was of West Indian descent, right? So the West Indies, you're talking about these islands in the Caribbeans, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic. Um, you're talking about the West Indies. And in many cases, these people, regardless of what they look like, they have similar lines of descent, going back to the indigenous people, the Taino, the Arawak, right? Which extended all the way from, Jamaica throughout Puerto Rico, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, all of that. So they have that similar line of descent. And then you had the slave trade where you had people who actually were brought from West Africa that mixed in with the indigenous people, right? And then you also had other people who immigrated into that land like later on after colonization, right? So these people all have similar lines of descent. And so I'm showing this because we all have similar lines of descent. Okay. And just going back to Malcolm X. Malcolm X's father, you see Earl Little and his mom, Louise Little, up here. His father, Earl Little, was from Georgia, and his mother was from Grenada, right? And when they got married, they were both Garveyites. They both followed Marcus Garvey, and they followed Marcus Garvey before they even got together and got married. So that means that this woman from Grenada saw the she saw what Marcus Garvey was doing and felt compelled to become a part of the movement, just like the brother from Georgia did. And they met each other in Montreal, Canada, and later got married, started their family in the Midwest, like in Michigan. Okay, and I'm only showing this because Marcus Garvey himself was West Indian from Jamaica. And even though Jamaica and Grenada have their own government, right, where they eventually declared their independence from the Europeans and they formed their government and everything, they still needed the movement. Marcus Garvey's the forerunner to the prophet. Why would he from Jamaica, who has their own government, feel like, hey, we need to empower ourselves? We need this movement. He was the forerunner. He got his people thinking in lines of, or our people thinking in lines of nationhood and seeing themselves as a global people. So this movement was important for all of us. And why would he feel like that? Well, as I said before, we have common lines of descent, whether it's through our indigenous ties to the land or through the slave trade, right? With people being brought from Africa, and also just the internal slave trade, period. We all got branded as Negro. All of us. So this is why there's no separation. There's a really stupid movement. I guess you could call it a movement where you'll see some people, and I don't know if this is like a YouTube thing or if it's like something that's actually happening in real life, but you'll see some people on YouTube that are all calling themselves foundational Black Americans and ADOS, descendants of slaves, and they're trying to put like some kind of divide up between us and them, including people from Jamaica, and all these other places, right? And that's stupid, right? We have these same ties that bind us together, right? Whether you're talking about the bloodline, but then also we all got branded as Negroes. We all had the slave trade occurring, right? Why would we try to fight each other instead of uniting, right? When we could be doing trade with each other, we could be working together to empower ourselves, right? Once again, Marcus Garvey put in so much work here in North America for us, right? So that we can empower ourselves and then also see ourselves as a nation and then begin to work globally with our people. The prophet came after him to solidify that. Okay, so don't discount that, man. Marcus Garvey was West Indian. Malcolm X's mother was West Indian, and her and her husband were Garveyites way before they got married. Right? They both saw the need. Also, Minister Farrakhan, he's also West Indian. His mom was from St. Kitts. Right? A lot of people don't know that. So this is real. This is powerful, and it spoke to us all. It's something that we all saw the importance of. Right? So, and we don't want to discount that because people like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Minister Farrakhan, they have a big impact on us. And don't forget, they're West Indian. So anybody pushing that garbage, you know, I don't know what to think of them. Right, they're agents or something. But this is just the imagery to put with this. That's Marcus Garvey and Amy Garvey, right? Two huge monumental figures who helped to get this movement started, right? The forerunner to the prophet. You don't always hear about his wife, Amy, but Amy was putting in work, right? There would be no UNIA without Amy. So it was Marcus and Amy, both from Jamaica, working to empower our people. Okay. Don't forget this. Garvey, when he came here and went to the early form of the NAACP. I forgot what it used to be called, but when he went in the building, all of the people in there were like boule, light skinned, so called Negroes. And it was so ridiculous. He thought he was in the wrong place. He's like, what, who are all these white people? This is supposed to be the organization for us. And that like helped motivate him to push the UNIA and make it for real, right? Because he saw at the time that they were setting up, the Europeans were setting up a caste system here. Okay. They're trying to set up a caste system, mixing themselves in with us and putting their offspring in to positions to keep the Europeans in power, right? So Garvey wanted to do the opposite, wanted to empower us for real. That's why he was seen as a threat. So don't forget, Garvey was, West Indian. Okay, this is why the prophet relinked us back into that. Going back to that West Indian indigenous link to the land, just once again, Jamaicans, you have a picture of a news article where this lady is talking about her and her either her mother, I think that's her mother, maybe her grandmother, but how they proudly proclaim their Taino, which is the indigenous tribe, their their indigenous ancestry, right? So they know that it's not just the slave trade. We've been here, and the Tainos look like us way back then. We're still here. They're not extinct, right? This is occurring in Puerto Rico. It's occurring all over. It's not just occurring here. So this is something. This is big time, right? And just wanted to put that imagery out there so that you know this is happening all over the world, and specifically right here in the Americas. And it, once again, doesn't matter where you go. Guadalupe, our people. Guyana. Guyana is like 80 to 90% people of African descent. Okay. I was about to say Nicki Minaj. I think she's Trinidadian. But there's a lot of people here. Here's the other thing too. Keep this in mind. There's a lot of people here that maybe even friends that you just think they're regular African Americans and they're Guyanese. They're of Puerto Rican descent. They're, from Guadalupe, Belize, Jamaican, and you don't even know it, as you don't really get into their ancestry because they look just like us and they walking around, right? Some of them even part of the movement. So don't forget that, right? Don't go for anyone pushing, um, sorry, yeah, don't go for anyone that's pushing division, hatred, when we literally have the same bloodline. This is just some imagery of Haitians, right? They're here and they look just like us, and sometimes we don't even know because they're not telling you they're Haitian, right? They're not running around with the Haitian flag around them, around their neck, or just like always showing that and telling you that. But there's just, I mean, some of you may know who Kodak Black is. That's just one example, but there's several examples all over around. Okay. And just going back to Chicago, a Haitian man founded Chicago. You see this imagery of him. There's a statue of him. Somebody put a fez on it, which is true. The Haitians are Moors. And as is occurring all over our dominions, you have Haitians waking up and reclaiming their Taino ancestry. Once again, like you see the image up here on the left, you see the Haitian sisters. They got the Haitian flag, and then they're wearing their indigenous regalia, which some people say, oh, it's just for carnival or something. But no, they're waking up. They're realizing this is who we are, right? And speaking about the founder of Haiti, this is the brother Pont du Sable, right? Jean Baptiste Pont du Sable. He's recognized as the founder of Chicago, right? He was the first one to have a permanent settlement, like a permanent, maybe back then was a town, you know, that became what is now known as Chicago. And he set up a trading post. And guess what? His wife was an indigenous lady. She was a Potawatomi woman, and her name was Kita Hawa or Kiawata, right? And so she became Kiawata Pont du Sable. At they got married in Cahokia, Illinois. Cahokia, of course, is where you had this great ancient indigenous city where you had several mounds and temples, right? So he got married to an indigenous woman from the area, and they founded Chicago together, right? And even with him setting up that trading post, many think that the reason he was able to do that is because his wife already knew, you know, where the Indians, the so-called Indians, were using areas to trade at, right? So they had this Chicago Tribune article from just like 2-3 years ago where they were putting up a proposal to rename Lakeshore Drive for Jean Baptiste Point du Sable, right? So it's not going to be Lakeshore Drive anymore. And then they started thinking like, okay, you know what? It's actually should be named Kiawata because he was able to found that through her indigenous links to the land, right? So a lot of people don't know that a Haitian man and a Potawatomi woman married and founded Chicago, right? But this is a part of our history, okay? And I see that, brother Islam. I saw there was like there was a video on like um Good Morning America or something like that, where they were talking to the people in Puerto Rico, and they're having an indigenous awakening occurring there. As a lot of them are starting to reclaim their indigenous links to the land, and they're like, "Look, we aren't extinct. We never went anywhere." And as you said, like they're doing their DNA, and they know that they're the indigenous people, right? So even though they've been teaching for years that the indigenous people are extinct, they know that they're still here, and that awakening is occurring right now, and it's happening all over the place. And I'll speak on that a little bit more when I get to Brazil because I've seen some things personally, right? That it's not just from research, looking around, but we have this image here. This is painted in 1870. It's in the Smithsonian Museum, and this is Toussaint Louverture, who helped to push the Haitian Revolution. He was the leader of what they call the first Black Republic in the Western Hemisphere, right? This is the Haitian leader, and he posed for this image where he was painted with his fez on, right? He's wearing a fez, a red fez with the tassel. Okay. Why did he do that? Why? Right? So let's look. Well, hopefully this next slide will load. I want to show you why he did that. I have some more. Mm. Okay, we're gonna I'm gonna keep that up. We're gonna come back to that. I have a video to show you, just so that you have some understanding maybe of why that happened. Like why would Toussaint Louverture pose for an image wearing a fez? Because he's a Moor. Plain and simple. It's because he was a Moor. Hang on. Let me show you something. So there's this old movie from like 1952, and trying to pull it up. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, this movie's from 1952. Hang on. I'm gonna do this a little bit better so you can hear the sound on it too. So in this film, you'll see Haitians wearing turbans and feathers.
Mirabeau and his renegade blacks, we call them Maroons, take great pleasure in finding white gazelles like you. See how much torture they can take before giving up the ghost. Some more, please?
No.
Forgotten I once saved your life.
When I stood up to Toussaint and said that we must kill all the whites before the French fleet arrives, you voted against me. You're Toussaint's lapdog. You're disloyal to our people. That servant of yours was a white. Perhaps saving my life was not enough.
Okay, so you can see in this voodoo ceremony, you see the men and the women wearing all white. You'll see the men and women also wearing turbans. And this is something that you see throughout the diaspora. Doesn't matter if he smacked the taste out of his mouth. It don't matter if you're in Brazil, Colombia, Haiti, as you see here, but you'll also see they show Haitians in here wearing the fez, like the brother on the horse. Then look at this.
They not only hold, they've driven him back. Toussaint! Toussaint! Toussaint!
Well, my friend.
Great news, sir. We've stopped the French in their tracks.
Okay, so just wanted to show that. I mean, I already know what the argument will be that you'll have some people saying, well, they're wearing the fezzes because they're French soldiers. All right. They're French soldiers. But you're talking about the Haitian Revolution, the soldiers who kicked the French out of Haiti, and they're wearing the fez, as Toussaint Louverture was wearing in his portrait as well. He's wearing a robe with a fez on. Somebody explain that to me. Okay. Martinique, just more examples of Asiatics throughout the Americas. Peru. You don't see this image of Peru very often. Okay. Even when you're in Peru, you won't see Afro Peruvians that much on TV. We have two images up here. So you have an depiction of a brother from 1560, right, in Cusco, Peru, who's an Afro-Spanish Muslim, right, saying he was sentenced to death for teaching Islam to the Native Americans, right? And then fast forward to modern times in Peru, and you have a rise in consciousness amongst the indigenous Peruvians, okay? And it's big because they're rising in consciousness. They're tired of being hidden away. And just to pause real quick, for the person that asked the name of that film, it's called Lydia Bailey. It's from 1952, the movie about Haiti. Okay, so there's a rising consciousness in Peru. Lydia Bailey. And the Afro-Peruvians are starting to assert themselves. Just some imagery of Puerto Rico, right? These are just images for me. My wife is of Puerto Rican and Haitian descent. You have people of obvious Afro descent on both sides. Okay. So, but yeah, for people, if you follow baseball, you see, the baseball players who many of whom are dark skinned. This isn't discounting those who are lighter complexion because they all of African descent. For real. Okay. I've seen this with my own eyes. Some of you watching are also Boricuas, from Cuba and places like that. So this is true because you can look at your own family and see this, or you can look in the mirror and see this, right? So Carlos Delgado, he was a real good baseball player, obviously of African descent. I believe Vladimir Guerrero, that's another one. If you want to just look it up, I think his son's playing too. So these are dark skinned brothers like Guerrero and them have dreadlocks. Also from Dominican Republic, right? One of the best players ever was Ortiz. They called him Big Papi. I think his name's David Ortiz. Real good player, like one of the top players of all time, right? He eventually grew dreadlocks out too, but he's like real big in Dominican Republic, but yeah, he's a Dominican, right? And he looks like brother from the U.S. Okay. And then once again, all of these places, man, we got branded as Negroes. Slave trade took place. Y'all pushing that division. Y'all need to go somewhere. You coming? If anyone is pushing division, they are coming at it from such an ignorant level. Don't even entertain that mess. Why? And then even the brothers and sisters of lighter skin complexion. Why would you try to push division on them, especially if they're aligning with their Moorish descent? Because these people can look in their own families; they know they're of Moorish descent. Because I mean, just like here in North America, we're not all dark skinned. You got people in your family of all complexions, so you don't push division, especially at this point in time. The prophet wasn't pushing that. Marcus Garvey wasn't pushing that. You're talking about people who were West Indian were a part of the movement right then and there. So we don't push that. Just you see the images, St. Lucia, um, Trinidad and Tobago, Nicki Minaj, Trinidadian, Suriname. Some of these places people speak English. Okay, so there's not even a language barrier there. But in many of these places that you see, we have so much in common. Even though we have different ways of cooking our food, we still a lot of times eat the same thing. In many of these places, doesn't matter whether you're in the islands, whether you're in South America, Central America, we're eating sweet potatoes, batatas doce. We're eating we're eating greens, right? Collard greens or whatever type of greens they're eating there. It might not be turnip greens or mustard greens like we eat in here, but they're eating some type of greens. We have these common bonds, whether it's coming from Africa or it's coming from the indigenous aspect. The culture is similar, even though we put our own flavor on it, right? And so I wanted to show that because many of us don't travel, and so we don't even know that we have all these things in common. So I went from living in Memphis, Tennessee to living in Brazil, and even though Brazil's like a complete 180 of living in Memphis, Tennessee, we have so much stuff in common. Why do we eat the same thing, but we just prepare it a little differently, right? So I'm saying this from experience. Okay. And some of you, like I said, this is true because you are of, you are from West Indies or Central South America. You know this stuff's true. All right. So, just, this is what the prophet is reconnecting us to. And we need to recognize truth from falsehood. Truth does not change or pass away. So even if we split apart thousands of years ago, I don't. So hopefully I'm not losing anyone here. If we go into the Quran or the Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter 47, it describes us coming here and being here so long ago that we were here before the earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. Okay. So even if our people split apart thousands of years ago, some went to what became the Caribbean, some went to what became Central South America, we still have these bonds, these ties, blood ties to each other. We still eating the same food, but we prepare it a different way. So that you could apply that to several things. And now even maybe even speaking different languages. Okay. But we don't separate ourselves. Now it's time to come together and to get this thing working. Right. Several people have contacted me from this Moors in America platform that live in some of the countries that are up here. They live in Barbados right now. They live in Trinidad right now, and they're trying to establish temples there and get things popping. Okay. And so, what we are supposed to be doing here is coming together like the prophet showed it, like we showed in that image from the convention where we had the Moors in Missouri, Ohio, Florida, all these places where we're at. We're establishing businesses because a part of our religion is the preaching of economic security. You can't preach if you don't practice what you preach. So that means we're supposed to be opening businesses and generating finances because nobody wants a block of wood is pointing away, telling you about stuff that they can't do, that they don't do. So we're supposed to be practicing the doctrine of economic security, right? As my brother wrote the book on that. Actually, that's on his channel as well. Go check that book out. But we're supposed to be practicing this and now working with our brothers and sisters in these other regions to not just establish temples, but to get it going so that we can do trade. All right. So that we can empower ourselves, cut out any middlemen. We can work directly with each other. Okay. So we need economic security. And so we're showing this imagery, the images up here, just so that you know that our people are all over the place. Like we really are in an incredible position. And I believe my wife wanted to say a few words. I'm gonna turn over the floor to her. Yes, she is West Indian, and yes, she's of African descent on both sides, Puerto Rico and Haiti, Boricua and Haitian, right? So come on over. Yeah, so I'm about to turn the floor over to her. Um, but y'all listen up, okay? We speaking from experience, not from just watching videos or reading stuff.
Peace and love, family. Islam. Gratitude for this beautiful demonstration is much needed. I just wanted to add a few things. When we look at the root of the problem, we always know that it's fear and lack.
Hang on one second. I just want to make sure you can hear because I don't see the thing going. Hold up. All right. I don't think we can hear you.
Islam, could I be heard? Press a 1 in the chat if you can hear me.
All right, here. Okay, hold up. Here we go.
Islam, gratitude, brother. I just wanted to add, it's based on fear and lack. Um, during the time of the European colonists when they were coming over, they had a strategy, and that was to terrorize our people, right? And so we kind of adapted in a way where we, as especially as mothers, you always tell your children, look away, look down, don't speak up, so they figure, because there's something that I've heard growing up. It's called when you advance the race, and they always like encourage you to date or marry a lighter skinned person so that your children won't have it as hard. Exactly, like the Willie Lynch. The children won't have it as hard. So they're purposely lightening up so that the children could have an easier time. And we know that that definitely came from, you know, the poison that was the seed that was implanted in us through fear. They terrorized our people. So when we see that, when we get down to the root of the problem, is based in fear. They divided us, and that's how they conquered us. But this demonstration right here is showing that we are one, and it's so many of us around the country, internationally, and other, all the countries that and the continent that makes up this land, that we are one family. Easy. We can go anywhere and they'll see us as them, and vice versa. There's no real division. It's all a state of mind. And as we advance in this knowledge and understand who we are as a people, we can definitely start to reverse that way of thinking, and we could be unified. And it's not hard. It will happen literally overnight, because it's not hard to love each other. But first, we have to love ourselves. You cannot love someone else if you do not love yourself. And that's why our illustrious prophet said to study self. And by us studying self, we come to demonstrations like this, where we see the connection of our brothers and sisters all over the world. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's all I wanted to say. Islam family, gratitude.
All right, Islam. All right, gratitude for the sister. for sharing her perspective, her experience. Okay, and just going back to just some of the stuff she's saying that shouldn't even sound weird to us. So we have the common ties as far as our bloodlines, culture, food, just the way that we interact, right? We have these common things, but also the negative stuff too, like the stuff that you hear, like she said, like telling the children, poisoning the children's mind, telling them that you need to you need to get lighter, you need to marry somebody lighter skinned than you need to marry somebody whose hair ain't as nappy as yours, right? We've all, well, most of us have heard these terrible things, right? So it's not like that's a Haitian thing or a Jamaican thing or whatever, Puerto Rican or Brazilian thing. Nah, unfortunately, we have that mess in common too. That Willie Lynch, that self hate, these colonized mindsets, because this colonization took place all over the board. So that's why I'm saying we're in the same boat. Okay, and this the images that are up here on the screen, you see in the left hand corner, right? The people with dreadlocks. That's me and my wife and my little boy, right? And we were in Brazil at that time, and everybody thought we were Brazilian, right? And it's not because you're light skinned, right? They thought we were Brazilian because we were obviously of African descent, right? The image down at the bottom, the brother and the sister, they related, and then that's my daughter, like they're with them. Then the image up on the right hand screen where we're all holding our children, that's me with my daughter, and then my friends and neighbors with their sons and daughters, right? So we're all holding our children, and I'm just showing this because we could have been in um we could have been in Harlem, we could have been in Detroit, we could have been in DC, we could have been in Oakland. We could have been in any area of the United States of America where our people live at, where it's a lot of us, right? We could have been in Alabama, Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee, Miami, just showing that because these are real Brazilians. Okay, and also going back to the rise in consciousness awareness, um speaking on Brazil in particular, right? Living there, and my eldest son, he went to school while we were living there, and in one of his books, his history book, it had a phrase in there speaking about the indigenous people. It was talking about the so-called Indians in Brazil, and it said negros de terra. Negros de terra means Negroes of the land. And that's what the Portuguese referred to the indigenous Brazilians as. They called them Negroes of the land for about 300 years. Right? The Portuguese arrived in Brazil in the 1400s. And they called them Negros de Terra up until like the 17 or 1800s. Negroes of the land. That's what they called the indigenous people. And it actually said that in his history book. I saw that with my own eyes. And then at that same school, one day I was coming down there, and there were some Indians, some indigenous Brazilians coming to the school, and they were coming there to talk to the children, teach them about their culture. And they were dark skinned. They were, Afro Brazilians. Okay. And I'm just sharing that again because this is true all over the world, even Brazil, where the transatlantic slave trade is. Some people try to act like that didn't take place, and that's stupid. That's wrong. I mean, I'm sorry if that's sounds like I'm insulting people, but no, the transatlantic slave trade did take place. You did have POWs, prisoners of war, who were captured in different parts of West Africa, and who maybe went through Gory Island in Senegal or different ports and somehow wound up in Brazil. Matter of fact, they had a port right there where we lived at in Salvador, Brazil, where they actually, in the old part of the town, it was over 400, almost 500 years old. They had the dungeons under the main quarters of that downtown, that old part of the town where they had all the colonial buildings. They have dungeons under the streets where they used to keep people who were brought in from West Africa. Okay. And so I'm sharing this because you have people who've never been anywhere trying to say the slave trade didn't happen just because they saw something online. All right. And then I'm sharing this also because you have people in Brazil, the Afro Brazilians who were brought there through the slave trade, but then also the indigenous aspect. So much so that the Portuguese called the indigenous people Negros de Terra for hundreds of years. Then they got, the idea that, hey, we need to stop calling the indigenous Negroes of the land. We want to act like all the Negroes came from Africa. Once they started doing that, then they, changed things up. But there's a rise in consciousness there as well because, well, just for example, well, there's a rise in consciousness among the Afro Brazilians, but also we met a lady who lived in a small town there called Cachoeira, and she was a school teacher, and she was a dark skinned sister with locks, and she was just telling us a little bit about her history and saying that like her ancestors were indigenous Brazilians, right? They were indigenous to the land, and we're telling her the same about what we know of our ancestors, right? Being indigenous to North America and indigenous to the Caribbean, okay? And we were talking because it's like there's not a lot of us that know this. And here's the thing, she was even commenting on that. The same way you may comment on that if you meet brothers and sisters here who are aware of the indigenous aspect of our history, right? So we were able to build on that. And I'm just saying that this rise in consciousness is happening all over the world. I was trying to find some pictures or something of the dungeons that they have under the old part of the city. Can't find it right now, but I've witnessed it with my own eyes. It's some stuff you just gonna have to go and see for yourself. But this is how the old city where we used to live at looked, and these buildings like old colonial style buildings that are hundreds of years old. I mean, you're talking about buildings that were built early 1400s, maybe 1500s, and then there's a portion of the city where under these little cobblestone streets they had the dungeons, and the slave trade was really happening. There's real verifiable evidence of it happening there. So even in this place where the majority of people of African descent were brought, you also had the indigenous aspect. And these weren't people who ran away from, slavery and joined the tribes. These were people who spoke the language, who were the only ones who knew the language, right? Who were the only ones that knew the culture of the indigenous people. And then we met Brazilians and talked to Brazilians there who knew this, who were like, okay, yeah, my grandfather, he descends from the indigenous Brazilians, or his ancestors were brought here through slavery, like through the slave trade, right? We talked to real people who knew this. And so that's something that you can only know from actually physically going somewhere, right? And so I'm just sharing that because it's real. And so we have these common ties across the board. And many of you have no idea that there's more people of African descent in Brazil than there are here in the US, right? So just wanted to share that because I've seen that with my own eyes. Okay. And this is just, some more imagery to go with it. You have a image down here in the lower right hand corner where it's so-called Indians in Brazil, and they're doing a protest in the capital, and they're brothers, right? Obviously, brothers. You have this brother on the right hand side of the screen with his Indian regalia, right? He's a chief of a tribe in the same state that we used to live in, Bahia. And this is what the Indians look like, the so-called Indians look like that went to my son's school, right? Little elementary school. They came there dressed like this to teach them about their culture. If you look here on the left hand side of the screen, you see my wife with our daughters and our neighbor. And our neighbor was Brazilian, a real Brazilian, through and through, 100% Brazilian, right? And he's a brother. And so just sharing it because all these people, like in the bottom, you'll see the two sisters wearing their um Indian regalia, right? And they're obviously sisters. So just sharing that, okay? Right. And so yeah, I see somebody else commented in here saying that your mother told you when you were young that her dad was Indian, right? Her mom is Haitian. And so even in Haiti, Like, I know with my wife having the same similar stories too, with having an indigenous Haitian aspect, right, of her ancestry. So we all are going through similar things right now. There's a disconnect. So what really needs to happen, like the prophet started the Moorish Guide, um, Marcus Garvey, remember he's West Indian. He had the newspaper. And the newspaper wasn't just being circulated throughout the United States, it was also going worldwide. It was also especially through the diaspora. This is what we're supposed to have. Right. This is why like I love that we get contacted by people from Brazil, people from um Guyana and Trinidad and Barbados, right? We're supposed to have our own media and be able to speak with each other, communicate with each other, know what's going on, and doing it from our perspective, right? That's why it would be so ignorant for someone claiming to be a Moor to be trying to push division right now. You know, they mic needs to get cut off, right? That's not what we're doing. You see the Afro Peruvians up here on the screen, right? Once again, they're awakening. They're reasserting themselves. They're also saying that we weren't all brought over here through the slave trade. That did happen, but many of us were already here. You see this image up here, portrait of Inca nobleman and his sons. So the Inca is not saying Peruvian noblemen and their sons. It's saying Inca. So the Inca were the indigenous Peruvians. That's where you had Cusco and Machu Picchu. The Inca built all of that. So it's saying the Inca nobleman and his sons. So you're talking about the royalty, the Inca royalty, the indigenous royalty, and his sons. And this is one name for this painting is the Three Dons, right? So they have gold. They're dressed as aristocrats. They're Inca noblemen, and they're obviously Afro Peruvians, I guess you could say, right? So they have that indigenous aspect, just like we all do. You'll see on the images up here, right, on the left hand side under Martin Lawrence, you see the Mexican brothers and sisters in the temple. And once again, I'm not trying to just say like it's only about people that are dark skinned. It's like our brothers and sisters are waking up regardless of skin complexion, right? You know, they're also Moors. They're also indigenous as well, right? We all have different mixtures going through our bloodlines. You may not be aware of it, right? But people have been coming here from all different parts of the world, even before the colonization started. You had people from China and different portions of the world coming here. And then once the Europeans came, the I guess you said the immigration to the Americas really blew up, right? So you don't really know what's coursing through your veins unless you're aware of it. Maybe your grandmother or grandfather or great grandparent told you about it, or they were of a different ethnicity, but you don't really know what's coursing through your veins just by looking at you. So you see the Mexicans over here, lighter skinned Mexicans. There's actually a temple only with Mexicans in it in Chicago, right? Then we look on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see some of the darker skinned Mexicans who are more obviously of African descent. But remember, even those who are mestizos are of African descent, whether they're proud of it or not. Okay. And the ones who aren't proud of it, they're no different than our family members who, you love them, but they were teaching you to hate yourself, right? Telling you, you need to marry somebody with good hair or somebody with, somebody lighter skinned than you, right? So they're no different than that. The ones who aren't proud of it, they hate themselves. But then we have more people who are proud of themselves, who are asserting themselves, and even starting to recognize themselves as Moors. All right. On the right hand side, you'll see these Afro Mexicans, Afro Mexicanos in Costa Chica saying that they are not. They insist that they are not the descendants of African slaves. They insist there was never slavery where they live at, even in ancient times. All right. They have no consciousness of slavery amongst the people in Costa Chica, even though they're obviously would be branded as Negroes in their country. Okay. And it goes on to say in other areas of Mexico where you have larger percentages of Mexicans of obvious African descent, they're saying that they didn't come from Africa. They were always there. Okay. They were the Olmecs. They were the Mayans. Montezuma was a very tall, dark-skinned brother. You see this description saying Montezuma was a man of, well, it says middling size, but I've seen reports where they say he was like over 6'4" or something like that. But it says, like all Indians of a very dark complexion, right? Not saying that like he was different because he was dark skinned. They're like, no, like all Indians, he was of a very dark complexion, right? He wore his hair long. Montezuma was described as a Moorish king, a Moorish chief. And that fits with how the Mayans, for the most part, depicted themselves. They depicted themselves as either light brown skin or dark skinned. When you see the depictions of the Mayans, they're either light brown, like tan, or very dark skinned. Okay, this is a vase from Bonampak, right? And you see these brothers are smoking. They're very dark skinned. Look like they even have on turbans, maybe turbans with feathers sticking out of them. But going back to Bonampak, right? The ruins at Bonampak, there's a temple that is immaculate where they have these murals painted all on the inside of it in full color. And everybody there is, either light brown or dark skin. Everyone. Some of them have on fezzes. Some of them have on turbans. Right. Then we have the stone sculptures like the one on the left where this is the old man wearing a fez. He's got scarring on his face. This was found in La Venta. He has a fez with a rope tassel. Okay. Just some more images. These are from Bonampak as well. You see on the one on the right, you have people with either braids or dreadlocks, right? Darker brown skinned people with braids and dreadlocks. Okay. The one on the left, the upper left, they're wearing turbans. Just showing that. Well, also let me show you this too. So Mexico is also a little different because in Mexico they act as if they don't have any people of obvious African descent, right? And I shouldn't say that it's different because there's a lot of places in Central South America that act like that. So I shouldn't say that it's different in that aspect. Because we've witnessed this. Like they don't show those people on TV. Right. But this is a documentary type movie that was I believe this was filmed in
El negro chulo.
Duero.
Yo soy el negro más chulo que ha
Where the
parido
majority of the
un
people are of African descent. So check this out.
costeño que Camunco sabe mejor. Si algunas veces me han dicho que prieto es mi color, yo nomás le digo prieto, lo burro que yo soy negro de nación. Y este
So I'm
color
just
no
showing
le
this,
pinta y más morado
the image
lo
with
pone el
this,
sol.
right? You have Mexicans here who are obviously Afro-Mexicans. Not saying that the mestizo, more like lighter skin people aren't of African descent. But I'm saying,
Quiero platicar
like,
contigo.
they don't show you this. Mexico doesn't even show Mexicans these Mexicans. Like, the only people who know about them is the ones that live in those states. They're marginalized, right? You don't think about they look like this.
Cada día traen menos pescado y el que traen de Acapulco lo dan más caro.
Also,
¿Y qué quieres que haga si me meto más al
the Mexicans that look like this aren't able to come to this country as often, right? Because they're marginalized, right? It's harder for them to have the funds or even just to get through immigration. They go through immigration, the Mexicans treating them like they from Haiti or somewhere else, like Jamaica. They're giving them the third grill.
voy a gastar más gasolina y va a ser peor? Todo en la vida se acaba. Hasta el mar se va a acabar.
Entonces, ¿qué hacemos? ¿Lo dejamos morir o qué?
Tú sabrás, cada uno hace lo que más le conviene.
¿Y a ti cuándo chingo te importa?
Jugo de caña melao, ven a mis brazos morenos y quedará bien despachado. Y ve contando la lana, negrito, porque esto no es regalado.
Nos vemos hoy en la noche.
Obis. ¿Y qué vamos a hacer?
Ahí lo que se vaya dando. ¿Pero me vas a perrear?
So, showing this again too, because this is why you would have a situation like I spoke on earlier, where Malcolm X's mother from Grenada would be a Garveyite, right? Like people from all throughout the diaspora would see the importance of this divine and national movement, why we all should be a part of it, right? Because it affects us all and because we all have these common bonds. In this scene, I'm not going to show this whole thing, but there's a sister on the bus. I guess she's going through a different state, and she's going like they have like at the state lines, they do immigration and they're treating all the black Mexicans, the so-called black, right? We don't call people black. They're treating them like they're not even Mexican. Like, show me some proof. I need to see your ID. I need to know that you're really Mexican. So they have their own things that they're going through, but also all these people are branded as Negro, right? Once again, we had the slave trade. Everyone's getting branded as Negro. We all have these things in common, right? But this is why it's so important, and just to put the imagery with it, right? Because you don't see this. You don't even know this exists. You might even have some fools out here who try to act like so-called African Americans and Mexicans aren't supposed to be working together, which is ridiculous, right? I mean, anybody talking like that, man, I don't know what to do with people like that. That's a trash mindset. That's ridiculous, right? That's not what the prophet was about. The prophet went to Mexico. He met with the governor. This was after he went to Cuba for the Pan American Conference. He goes to Mexico. He meets with the governor. He sends a postcard and back home, and they write about it in I think the Chicago Defender and the Moorish Guide. But he meets with the governor there on behalf of the Asiatic states of North America. Okay, so the truth is being revealed. The key to civilization was and is in the hands of the Asiatic nations, the Moorish, who were the ancient Moabites and the founders of the holy city of Mecca. If we don't get it together and come into our movement and act accordingly, no one's going to, right? We're going through similar plights. We have these common bonds, even no matter how long ago it was. Truth does not change or pass away. We are related. Do not forget these bonds that we have together. We are to work together. We're not to forget these bonds as we separate into the world. So for our Cuban, Puerto Rican, Haitian, Jamaican, Barbadan, whatever you call people from Barbados, Bayesian, Trinidadian, all this stuff, we all supposed to work together. Get it going. All right. We are supposed to reconnect, as the brother said in the chat, Islam. Yeah. And so we're supposed to work together to strengthen our ties and also to empower ourselves from an economic standpoint. And this beautiful, wonderful movement gives us the ability to work directly together without any middleman. Nobody can come between us and stop us. And so the prophet came to reveal all of this, right? And this is why you'll see in the symbolism that he did, like the way that he stood with the hand over the heart. You'll see this on the left hand, the figurine. I believe that figurine is from Peru. And then on the other side of the prophet, you have another one from the indigenous cultures in North America, right? So on one hand, you've got an image that I believe was found in one of the mounds, like in Cahokia. And then you also have one from South America, and they're standing the same way. Then you have the imagery that's on the cover of the Quran questionnaire, where the prophet's lifting the woman out of the cares of the world onto the solid rock of salvation. You see that same imagery throughout Aztec culture. You even have some of the Aztec paintings or sculptures where one foot is in water and one foot is on land, just like the prophet, lifting the woman out of the cares of the world, right? So this imagery, right, unconscious humanity, lifting them out of the cares of the world. This is real. This is ancient. And this is what the prophet is returning us to. So even though we're not disconnecting ourselves from Africa, we're not disconnecting ourselves from that because our ancestors did receive permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to come and settle and inhabit Northwest Africa. But the prophet is returning us to what the ancients were doing right here in the Americas, wearing the fez and the turban. And this is why you'll see the prophet, he had his turban on and it had the feather in it. But these other images that you'll see, these figurines next to the prophet wearing the turban, they're wearing a turban and a fez. These are all depictions of ancient Americans. These are all depictions of the indigenous Americans. They're all blackamoors wearing a turban with the feather in it. That's what the prophet's returning us to. Then you see on the other side with the fezzes. Now you had statues wearing the fezzes all the way out in the Easter Island, which is off the coast of Chile in South America, right? But then you have this found throughout the Americas. Now the fez is actually found throughout the world. As you see down here, the person wearing the tarbouche or the fez in ancient Egypt, bright red, right? Dark-skinned pharaoh wearing the fez. Then you also see that in ancient Mexico and Belize. You see that in Peru, as I showed before with La Venta, the old man wearing the rope tassel. How many of you knew that the Inca nobility wore the fez? That's what you see in the book Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx, written by Augustus Laplongeon, who was an anthropologist, right? He started to be able to transcribe the ancient script of the Mayans. He wrote about how Garcilaso de la Vega, Cieza de Leon, Acosta, and other writers of the Peruvian customs and manners inform us that the fringe and tassel of the yantu, royal headdress of the Incas, was made of fine crimson wool. So somebody else could read over that and they don't see nothing. But if you really are awake, you know that you're more. When you read that the yantu is the royal headdress of the Incas, and it had a tassel and it was made of fine crimson wool, you know that the yantu is a fez. I don't care what you call it. They call it a yantu, but it's the royal headdress and it's made of fine crimson wool. What is your fez made out of? If you have a real fez like morrisfez.com, right? Go to morrisfez.com to get your fez. They're made out of 100% wool. And it's fine crimson wool. It's dark red. And it has a tassel. That's what the Inca, the royal headdress of the Inca. And they called it a yantu. That's the same thing. Speaking of morrisfez.com, Morris, if you don't have your fez, you need to go to morrisfez.com to get your fez.
Highest quality handmade fezzes. Crafted fez with the finest wool, complete with tassel and leather sweatband. Wear the national headdress of Moorish Americans with pride and respect. 3XL size fez is a comfortable fit for brothers with dreadlocks. Shipping worldwide. Go to moorishfez.com to order.
All right, we back.
Islam, a mastermind could trace himself through time. That is what our Prophet Noble Drew Ali did. He knew who he was. He traced himself, and then he taught us. So definitely attend the temple meetings. Learn about who you are, where you come from. Because without the knowledge of self, you are doomed to repeat this history. And it's so easy to enslave children who don't know any better. Islam, this knowledge is so powerful, and it will unlock those mental chains that's been put upon us.
Islam, gratitude. So we're coming towards the end of this broadcast. But just, going back to what she's saying, this unlocks, the keys within you. So now, like I was reading before about the yantu, if you come across something like this, you're able to see it for what it really is. They don't say the fez worn by the Inca noble class. No, they say the yantu, the royal headdress of the Incas, were made of fine crimson wool. It had a fringe and tassel. So now you know what that is because you're an intelligent, wise Moorish American. So now you know when the prophet said that we received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt. You see in the right-hand corner up here, there's a pharaoh of Egypt wearing a fez, and he's a dark-skinned brother with a red fez on. Fine, it's crimson. This is dark red, just like the fezes you see on MorrisFez.com. And so then you see under that statue of that pharaoh in Egypt wearing his fez, then you see a Olmec head. Looks like he has a fez with the turban wrapped around it, a turban wrapped around it, and at the bottom, and then tassels hanging down. Okay, and that's in Mexico. Then the nobility of the Inca in Peru wore a fez. Then you see on the left hand side, you'll see variations of the fez found throughout North America. The indigenous in North America also wearing a fez. So this is why the prophet said, as we separate in the world, we're not to forget these ties that we have to each other. Prefer not another over your own bloodline. Prefer not another before your family. And so this is why those maybe who aren't Moorish Americans, they don't understand, why are you guys saying this? Why are you talking about it? Why are you calling yourself Moors? Because the Moors, all right, are the creators of civilization. All right, we've been over here since before the great earthquake which caused the Atlantic Ocean. To us, this is northwest of Mexico. This is Northwest Africa. All right. And as it broke off, you have Northwest Africa still there today, but still, right? Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Mauritania, Benin, Nigeria. Benin's inside of Nigeria, but Senegal, all of these places are Northwest Africa. And that's also where they will say that we came from. They took the people and enslaved them from West Africa. That's all in Northwest Africa. So it doesn't matter how you cut it. From our perspective, we know who we are now, right? And so this is why we have this rise in consciousness and why we're moving in this direction. And this is why this is the great unifier. Doesn't matter if you're in North, Central, South America, or the Atlantis Islands. You're still talking about the Moors. All right. And so I wanted to show that just so that we have a good understanding of who we are. This is why you had the pyramid building civilizations found throughout North, South, and Central America, and why many of the people that claim to be the Native Americans, who are the majority for the most part of European descent, they let it be known that they didn't build these pyramids, even if they call them mounds, they're pyramids. They didn't do that. The Moors did that, right? And so when it says the key of civilization was and is in our hands of the Asiatic nations, this is where we're at, Moors, right? We have to come in and be who we truly are in order for things to change. No one else is going to do this for us. No one from another country is going to come and do this for us. Obviously, the power structure, the people of pale skinned nations of Europe aren't going to do this for us. It's all on us. All right. And so I just wanted to share this measure on chapter 45, just to give an understanding of why the prophet did what he did, and also why he linked North, South, Central America all in together, right? Because this is the power stronghold. This is why the prophet went to the Pan American Conference, why he was received as a head of state. There's some Moors who know or maybe understand what took place in the Adab chamber when the prophet came back, right? And some of the Moors who were there said that the prophet received the mandate for the land. Right. So there are Moors who know what happened, but then we also have those who cover that up and don't want to speak about it. Right. But this is real, and this is why the prophet also went to other countries like Mexico to form those bonds, to let it be known that we are here. We know who we are. It's time to take over.
Islam. And we have to always remember that change starts with us. Right. So when we see our brothers and sisters, reach out to them in love, greet them in love, because love from us is going to change this world. This world's already shifting. Our mind states are already shifting. We have to be love made manifest, because we are Asiatics. We're the angels. We're here to deliver these messages and be perfect examples of love. And as soon as we start loving ourselves and loving our brothers and sisters as we love ourselves, we are going to see change, dramatic change. So start today, Muslims. Start loving yourself. Start loving your brothers and sisters of all the Asiatic nations. And together, we're going to change this world in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam?
All right, Islam and gratitude, and I like what the Sheikh brother Neil Bay said in the chat. Said, "Man of original race equals more." I like that, and that's truly that's what the Prophet brought to us. You know, he returned us to it, and not just in talk, and thoughts, deeds, and actions, and that's why more should come on in, study, understand what the Prophet really brought, because it truly sets you apart, and it places you in a position of prominence where you really know who you are, you know how you fit into this world, and you fit into the family of humans. And it's not to be arrogant or just to be putting other people down, anything like that. Right? We're coming in love, all right, and we know our place in this thing. And so this is what it's really about: coming in, cleaning our own situation up, and showing improving by our actions. Right? Showing how it's done instead of showing people, leading people astray. Because even in our lower state, we are still leaders. We're still influencing the world, but we don't want to influence people in other countries to gangbang, to influence people in other countries to do drugs, to commit crimes, to have children out of wedlock. Right? We don't want to convince people, to make people think it's cool to do all of these terrible things from the lower self. Right? We want to represent the higher self and vibrate at a higher level, and to help our uplift fallen humanity. But that begins with us. And so on this note, though, we're going to go ahead and close this out. But as we do this, I want to ask everybody to like and to share this video. And even if you watched it or listened to it on another platform, make sure you go back and also check it out on YouTube and share it. And if you came in later on, just come back and watch the whole broadcast. It's all going to be saved and recorded. All right. But make sure you go and like. And if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, do that as well. And then also, Morris, go over to the Facebook. I'm not Facebook, the Instagram page, right? And make sure that you follow Instagram. Just go to Moors in America on Instagram. They took the Instagram page down. We had over 30,000 people on there. So make sure you go back and like that page, okay? And we're about to close out, Moors. Hang on.
Islam, one more thing. If you're located in the Columbus, Ohio area, be sure to check out the Black Expo Memorial Day weekend. Come out and see, the demonstration. We're going to be there. We hope to see you there. That is Memorial Day weekend. All right. Come learn about yourselves, Muslims.
Okay, yeah, so definitely check that out. Our Temple 30, will have a booth at the Ohio Black Expo, um, May 27th and 28th. So that's that Memorial Day weekend, downtown Columbus, Ohio. That's right there on the river. It's going to be great. They're going to have live entertainment. KRS-One, Sheila E. is going to be performing. Several other bands and artists will be performing. They'll have a bunch of food trucks there. It'll be great. You can come and build with us. We'll be there all day, Saturday and Sunday, May 27th and 28th. You can check that website out, ohioblackexpo.com, to get more information on it. But yeah, make sure you come through. People will be coming from
all over.
Yeah.
All over.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So yeah, that'll be the 27th, 28th.
It's funny because this demonstration, you talked about Jamaicans. KRS-One is actually of Jamaican descent. Islam.
Yeah, they're all over here, man. Busta Rhymes, a whole bunch of people. And so, yeah, Morris, everybody, like, share this. Go and follow Moors in America on Instagram if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube page, and just help to spread this, because we're really trying to awaken and enlighten our people, and to bring the light, because we don't cover things up. We don't lie and hide things around here. Okay. And on that note, though, Morris, we're gonna go ahead and get up out of here. But everybody, go like that page on Instagram, and check out some words from our sponsors. Peace.
Every day, billions of searches are conducted online, therefore it is critical that your company stands out to the small percentage of clients who are essential to your business. Our team of local digital marketing consultants and SEO experts is eager to help your company achieve its goals through a consultative approach, top Google rankings, and collaboration with industry experts. Here at Adept Marketing Solutions, we stand for integrity, dedication, ingenuity, and results. We know how to navigate the ever-changing digital landscape and what brands must do to succeed. Visit our website to see what we can do to help you reach your goals.
CareMore is a non-profit organization focused on providing goods and services to families and individuals in our underfunded communities in Central Ohio. We have created an online presence to reach members of our Central Ohio communities, as well as local events and meetings to give away supplies and donations throughout the city all year long. Visit our website to learn more and to send a donation.
Fez Caps blends Moorish style with modern streetwear hats. The cutting-edge design features Moorish symbols with a silk tassel on the dome of the cap. More than just a fashion statement, Fez Caps represents something powerful and ancient within you. Go to fezcaps.com to order your Fez Cap now.
Don't let your history start at slavery. Join with Moorish Science Temple, a lawfully chartered Islamic organization, and proclaim your nationality while helping us uplift fallen humanity. Founded by American prophet Noble Drew Ali and consistently promoted plans for the betterment of humankind. We are located in Columbus, Ohio. Visit our website www.moorishamericans.com and follow us on social media. We hold live meetings on Zoom every Friday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Give us a call at 614-407-4394 if you would like to join or send donations to help us uplift fallen humanity.
Highest quality handmade fezzes. Crafted fez with the finest wool, complete with tassel and leather sweatband. Wear the national headdress of Moorish Americans with pride and respect. 3XL size fez is a comfortable fit for brothers with dreadlocks. Shipping worldwide. Go to moorishfez.com to order.